Welcome back to the Built for Profit podcast. We have Mr. John with us today that I am so fired up to get into this conversation with him because he's working in the systems and process and helping people run just a machine in their business, specifically in the contracting world. He's calling in from Florida. And so, John, number one, welcome to the podcast, man. I'm so glad that you're here. And then number two, I'd love for you just to kick us off by saying, who is John? And how did you get to where you're at today, building what you're building?
Austin, thanks so much for having me on today, man. I'm super pumped about this. This is really exciting. So, a little bit about me. I started in Champaign, Illinois, very early on. Started doing things for other people, for other businesses. Had an opportunity really early on, and created some real value for a software company that was selling to the Corps of Engineers at the time.
Cool.
And, they came back through, they won the bid, they needed a demo piece of software, did it for them. Had no idea what it was worth, undervalued it. It was great for me, but it sparked that little interest of, man, providing value for others is really cool.
Yeah.
He, had a job opportunity at the time to move to Orlando, Florida,
Okay.
1,600 miles away, and we found out, it was a good fit technically, but people-wise, it wasn't as good a fit as it probably should have been. He didn't wanna release the reins on a lot of the operations for what we were doing, and so for 4 weeks in, found myself without a job and 2 months from rent being due at the time, and really no way to get it taken care of whatsoever. And I think a lot of people would have crawled back into their shell, gone back home and said, "That's it." We didn't do that, and came to a point where we said, "Okay, we gotta start providing value." That was to other businesses, and that was back when the dot-com was a big thing. E-commerce was
Yeah.
a big deal, and not everybody knew how to do it. So, computer and internet connection, and on we went. We started doing websites for people and helping to grow businesses from there.
Love it. That is fantastic. I love that. So then, yeah, so coach us through so started getting into that whole world of just like how we can leverage technology, leverage software for people. So then kind of carry us forward a little bit into how you got into kind of building your own business as well.
Yeah, so building our own business actually was one of those things early on. Real estate was an interest of mine, and heard a lot of people say, if you want to get rich and you want to have good wealth in your business or in your industry or in your world, real estate's the way to go. So I said, okay, let's pick up those reins, start working with that. Did real estate for quite some time, did well with it, but realized that it was really, you were providing an offer, an opportunity for your clients, and trying to ensure those clients a result that you didn't have control over. You
Yeah.
didn't control everything. That didn't set well with me.
Yeah.
I mean, when I make an offer to a customer or client, I want to be able to deliver that product. And so that was the big thing for me. And then also, realizing with some sicknesses and things that came up that, when you stop working, your income and your business stops too.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's a big gap that was really brought to bear. And so we started doing consulting with people here locally, some business owners we had, locally here, help them to get some really good early wins and develop some technology and put more money in their pocket off the same billables that they're already doing. The same money they're already bringing in, they're just getting more, keeping more of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, that's fascinating, John. So, yeah, from the consulting, so you obviously you got out of the real estate. I'm curious on the real estate side though, for you, were you like acting as an agent? Were you investing in properties and bringing in investment properties to people? What did that look like on the real estate side?
Right. So on the real estate side, I was acting as an agent, and I would also go through and coordinate with home improvement companies and things like that in the area to be able to help to give my sellers, predominantly sellers, not buyers, a better product, get the fix ups and things done. Because what we know is that a $500 fix is usually a $5,000 price adjustment if you're doing that at negotiation.
Yeah, yeah,
We did that, and we coordinated a lot of that, and that helped us win really well for our clients. But, when a buyer gets a little bit skittish about something in Florida, or they hear something on the internet, they pull the plug, and they don't have a whole lot of recourse here in Florida. I don't know where, other states and things like that, what they're like, but Here in
Yeah.
Florida, that's a big issue.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. Okay, so then you got into the consulting side, and so, like, is that how you ultimately started, opening up I mean, basically doing what you're doing now? Is just the consulting has moved into this systemized approach of just continuing to go in and help business owners?
That's right. Yeah, we took I kind of took the same approach basically that I was seeing in the real estate space, doing, a standardized approach and really getting it dialed in so that we can give the owners an actual set of playbooks to run on because what we know is that busy is not always profitable. A lot of people
Yeah.
always say they're so busy, but they have no idea why the bank account isn't going up, and that ends up being a big thing. A full schedule doesn't mean that you're not making bad decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to say it, John. That's super wise. I think that is a trap that I feel like, especially in the small business world, that activity does not always equal progress, right? And so, like, well, you gotta have those realizations of, like, what are the most profitable things we could be doing? What are the things that we're actually losing money on every time I show up at that place or I provide that service or whatever it is? So, okay, I love that. So, John, coach us up a little bit. I'm curious, what does it look like when you onboard? Well, number one, who's your ideal client? I'd love to hear about that. And then, like, once you find an ideal client, what does that onboarding process look like? How do you serve them? What does that first kind of couple months look like working with your company?
Love that. So when we predominantly work with home service business owners that are usually between 300 to 1.5 million or more per year, but the most of them are they're still in the business. They're still like if it's an air conditioning business or an electrical company. They're usually still out turning some wrenches and screwdrivers and things like that. They're still out operating in the business, and their hopes are to then be able to grow it into something that they can then operate instead of just, a glorified job.
Yeah.
So ideally that's where we're at with our clients. But what we know is that most of the time when we start bringing them on board, what we first do is we sit down and go through and say and look at exactly where they're spending their time, where they're spending their resources, and what their calendar is showing us up front.
Yeah.
Do a quick assessment on that, and then start looking at their books, both the receivables and their payables, and see where the thin spots in the margin are. And I think that's really where you guys come in really handy here, is because a lot of our clients even, and I'm sure you see it all the time in your business, that people look at their checkbook and they still got money in it, so we must be doing okay.
Yep. Yeah, that is that we call it like the gun I mean, the gunslinger mentality, right? Where it's just like all you're looking at is the one balance that's in the account, and then you're making decisions for your business off of that when it's a very poor way to understand the performance of your business with just only tracking that number. Yeah.
Exactly. So we take a look at usually we'll go back through their last 5 jobs, the bigger jobs, the better, and look at the forecasted materials and costs and things like that. And then we look at what the actual numbers were at the end. And it's mind-blowing how many of the operators do not really even know what their final hours were on a job or
Yeah.
anything, and then they wonder, "Why is all this extra overtime finally showing up, 3 or 4 weeks after completion?"
Yeah. No, that is okay, John. I'd love to dive in a little bit on in the weeds on that because I think it's fascinating as you kind of gather this data from these owners. So, number one, I'm curious. Well, let me kind of list out the questions before I forget them, and then we'll kind of dive into each. The first one I'd love to dive in is if somebody's not even managing their calendar, they're not putting any appointments in there, and they're just kind of like pencil and napkin in the truck mentality where you just like trying to go back and audit that owner's time to even see how to improve. I'm curious how you do that. And then secondly, going into the per job flow of things. Are you having to tap into like other systems like Jobber or things out there to pull that data to then understand kind of where they're at? Or if they don't have systems like that, how are you even gathering that through? Are you literally looking through transactions in their bank account to be like, okay, what was this job for? What was this job for? And splitting it out to ultimately determined to say, like, here's what it actually cost you to go do this job. Here's what you made on this job. Here's the extended period of time. I'm curious to kind of walk through that process as well. So if can you answer both of those two questions there?
Sure, let's start at the first side of it, and just really the main thing that we see a lot of is that the technicians that are in the like, in the HVAC industry, you'll have technicians that go and do service, and then you have install only and things like that. So you have different levels of technicians. One of the interesting things we see is that a lot of times at the end of a job to turn up a light commercial install or something like that, the lead technician, the big service technician has a higher dollar rate, will come in, put some hours on the job, but they're costed out at the initial installer's rate.
Got it. Yeah.
So they see there's a gap there, and they're really not accounting for it. Most of them, they'll turn in, hey, we did 50 hours or 55 hours. They need their pay, but they don't have it allocated out as to what job is what. Jobber, service titan, and stuff like that help to true those numbers up, and those are huge, huge assets for a lot of operators.
Yeah.
Scary thing is, most of the smaller operators that are still in that owner business mentality instead of the actual operator business, they don't even have that type of software.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're winging it.
Yeah. I imagine so. Yeah.
But, so that's been a challenge, and then when it comes to actually going through and looking at that, we can look at payroll and go back and look at what those jobs were in those same time frames that the payroll was actually done. We can get a good estimate, but it's not gonna be super clear. So, typically, if that's a gap, then what we'll usually do is set up on moving forward on the next 5 or so jobs moving forward. We kinda go hand in hand with the owner and say, "Okay, let's put this into our playbook up front without even having to onboard all the systems yet. Let's look at and just give me line items for your labor, what your material estimate was from your estimator, and then give me the actual invoices from the vendors for what that really costs," because materials change all the time.
Yeah.
The estimators aren't keeping up with it. They're going off the top of their head, usually not off of a playbook. They're going off the top of their head.
Yeah.
So there's a gap right there in margin too. All these little things add up.
Yeah. 1,000%. Okay. So I'm curious. So once you, whether you have the gap or you don't have the gap, if they're tracking or not tracking, once you have the data, so then what's the next steps of how you try to, implement, add value to kind of revamp their system?
Right. So once we have the data on where the gaps are, then we look at one of a few things. Are we not implementing consistent systems to streamline your labor that you're spending?
Yeah.
So if somebody's winging it, if a technician's just winging it every time, they're not going to perform consistently. They're going to have to rethink everything all the time. So there's a savings there. So there's two parts to it. There's savings and efficiency on the front end, but then there's also you have to question now, all right, for the value that we're giving the client, are we actually undervaluing our services or do we need to raise our prices?
Yep. Great point.
And I would say probably 85 to 90% of them out there, they need to do a combination of both. Most of them, they're underpricing
Yeah.
and they're underestimating the actual labor hours. So there's a big pinch point.
Yep. Great point. Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that, John. These are the exact conversations we get to have with people as well. Is that I feel like when you steward something wisely, you have to do those two things. Are we doing things as efficiently as we can, like in a smart way that still creates the value for the customer? And are we pricing accordingly to make sure that we're operating with margin? And so, yeah, you have to do those two things.
And I think that's where you guys come in so clutch is because the clean numbers mean you're making the right decisions. You're not making the decisions based on feeling because if you don't know your true job costs, then dispatch is guessing. You know, your margins are then decided upfront before the truck leaves when you have that kind of clarity. Otherwise,
That's right.
you're in the weeds, like you said. And every bad estimate will show up in stress. It's going to show up in profit loss. And I mean, make no mistake, one of the other things we see is people retaining their top talent. Because if you have a good technician, they need to have good pay, they need to have good benefits. But if they feel like they're stressed out overall and that work ethic is just it's there, but the work is so hectic and stressful and they could have it so much easier with a better set of systems involved,
Yeah.
your retention's gonna be very flat because that or it's gonna be a big problem.
Yeah. 1,000%. That's so good, John. And honestly, that's a great point that it probably needs to be talked about more of just saying like, okay, your A players, one of the things that can drag an A player down is just the stressful culture that you create as an owner because you haven't developed or implemented the systems and processes and the predictability of knowing if your company is going to actually make money or lose money on that job. Because I feel like one of the things that causes stress, and I know for me too, as an owner is when you don't know, right? If you don't have a systemized approach of the outcome, it's going to by default cause stress because you're like, I don't even know if we're going to make money or lose money, right? And regardless, even if you do make money, if you're in the unknown world, it's still causing that stress. And so that's a great point you made, John, because I think obviously when you, especially in the small business world, the owner of that business has to lead the pack of the business. And if that business owner is operating with stress, then everybody else in that organization feels the stress. And
Yeah,
so that's a
that's
great yeah, great
it.
point.
It's 100% right. And, Austin, the big thing is that when you have that kind of stress, not just from a retention standpoint of your people, but as an operator, if your goal or your job is to lead the business and grow the business and scale it to become something much larger than where you're at right now, and all you're doing is just firefighting all day long,
Yeah.
you're not going to scale that. You're going to self sabotage yourself as a business owner
Yeah.
because nobody wants more headaches. Nobody signed up
Yeah.
for more and more headaches at scale.
Yep, so true. And honestly, and we've heard this time and time again, John, just through the Dan Martell world, but like, as you need to simplify your business now because with growth, it automatically becomes more complex because more people add complexity, more systems, more processes add complexity. So if you're having a hard time now, like managing that, it's near impossible to want to grow because growth is not going to fix that problem.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
that's exactly right. Adding
Yeah.
adding more staff isn't gonna help solve the issue. It's just not.
That's right. Okay. I love this, John. As you get once, like you said, you have the data, you figure out which places to focus in on. And then does your team kind of go in and custom build something that custom fits the mold of that particular owner? Or y'all kind of taking in a slew of technology? Kind of walk us through that process of say, like, how do we systemize a HVAC? Like we'll go back to your example, like the technician on the HVAC company. How do you approach systemizing their business?
We take a look at both ends of it, from the front end where the customers and clients are coming in because the business or the shop's spending marketing dollars, looking at their conversion there. So we take a look at that metric side of it, and then we look at the fulfillment side of it as well. And we go through and we tailor it to the individual owner's needs, because just because you're an HVAC company doesn't mean you're using Service Titan and all this other technology right now today.
Yeah.
You need to start where you start and then grow it from there. So we take a good audit of where their systems are at right now and where the quickest wins are.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, because what we know is that, if I've got somebody who has my lead technician who's on call overnight holding the phone at 3 in the morning, he's not going to be trying to sell services and
Yeah.
handle objections. He's gonna be, like, trying to figure out, is this a real call that I need to go on, or do I even wanna go on it at all?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's systems and pieces and components we put together that help meet them where they're at, and then we look at, basically, once we hit those first indicators or those first milestones, then we progress and we step it up from there and level it up from there, and we tell the owners up front, there's going to be new issues all the while we go through this. We're going to break stuff along the way. It's going
Yep.
to happen.
Yep.
And sometimes it really sets some people off. They're like, "Well, I'm not hiring you to break things." Correct, but we're having to fix the first thing so that
Yeah.
it puts more stress, because the more marketing conversion you get on the front end now means production and your fulfillment on the back end is going to be more chaotic. You may have to add more trucks, train more people up. Your helpers might end up having to go to class and become an installer or become an actual service technician then.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah,
that
no, that's really good. So I guess, John, for you, because you're dealing with in multiple, I guess, like service-based industries, and there's multiple softwares out there that they could potentially use, like we've already talked about Jobber or Triton or any of those. Is it Titan? Titan.
Service Titan, yeah,
But,
Service Titan.
Service Titan, that's what it is. Do y'all specialize in, like, basically showing your clients how to best use those softwares, or is it something different than that?
We partner with some of the people that actually do the implementation for Service Titan and for Jobber and things like that. One of the things though that we'd look at is trying to get technology that we can bolt on to and actually work with those softwares without getting too techy on it. Being able to actually then have dispatch taken care of or have calendars and allocation updated in real time in the software. And so it depends. I mean, if they don't have a CRM, some of them, they've got a file cabinet or an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then, we do have CRM softwares and things like that that we can provide the clients, as part of the process as well. So they can manage their pipeline from, hey, we missed a call overnight, or we didn't get this quote closed up yet.
Yeah.
And, with AI and technology, that's actually gotten a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
it's
that
crazy.
yeah, no, John, there's a whole slew. We could probably have a whole separate conversation just on that. I am curious just for the listeners because there's a decent amount, hopefully, of service-based industries, that are listening to this. Are there particular tools that you're like, "Man, this is the tool I want everybody to use," just because you see the capability and the potential behind it inside of like, is it a combination of, like, Jobber and Go High Level for CRM? I'm just curious, what have you seen as the ones that you've, like, enjoy working with and have a good
Well,
user experience?
there's so many different ones out there, and it's a good question. And so we look at it a little differently in the fact that rather than just trying to support one product or technology, we look at the actual role that that software is trying to do. Because everybody asks me, "What's the best CRM? What's this? What's that? What's the best AI platform or whatever?" It could be whatever. And the reality is it's the one you use. It's the one
Yeah,
your
yeah,
people are gonna gel with and use, and because not everybody needs every bit of that
that's a
technology.
great
So
point.
it's not trying to dodge the question, it's just really it comes down to needs assessment.
For sure. And I think what you mentioned is so smart. It's the ones that they use as well. And so, like, that is probably a good reality because if you could have an incredible system, but if nobody's doing anything with the system, then it's pointless to have the system.
Yeah.
So, that's
Now,
great.
one thing, and I hope it's okay, but, one thing that we do across the board up front is we give the owners a weekly scoreboard. Basically, it's, for their home service company. It's a weekly scoreboard, and so what I was gonna do for your clients and your people that are watching this is if they find me on Instagram, it's under I am John Ray, Ray spelled Reay. Just DM me FW playbook or sorry, FW scoreboard.
Okay.
That what I'll do is I'll send you guys for your listeners, I'll send out our scoreboard, our weekly scoreboard that we give to the owners and CEOs so they can track those big numbers that are really going to help move the needle for their business.
Yeah, John, I love that. We'll definitely put that information in the show notes so everybody can find that. I think it is a fantastic resource for everybody listening. Please go find John on Instagram, him directly that word, and I think that would just be a beautiful gift that I appreciate you doing that, John. I think that would help a
Yeah,
lot of people
absolutely.
out. So,
Because the way I look at it is you guys are giving them absolute clarity on the numbers that they need to track. But if they don't have something where they're really able to just dial it in on how this really applies to the health of their business, I think
yeah.
it's gonna be a game changer for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's so good, John. I think that's just gonna be a tremendous resource. So I really, really appreciate you doing that. Well, cool. Okay. Well, as we wrap up a little bit, I'm curious right now, when you focus in on your business, what do you feel like are the things that you have momentum in? And then what are the things that you feel like is the hole in the boat right now that you're trying to solve?
Good question. Momentum is the big thing that we're looking at, we're bringing on these days more than ever is switching into a model of having AI first. There's been a lot of momentum in that. The
Yeah.
big thing is on the front end, the acquisition of new clients. That's been huge. So that's a huge momentum point for us right now. We're really seeing a lot of that. As far as where things are progressing in the future for us, we're bringing on a new system that it's kind of interesting. You mentioned that about the softwares and things like that, but we are bringing on a new system that will dovetail not only with the AI for the front end of it, but also to help with retention and your pull through That's what I call it, the pull-through rate, basically, for once the job is booked to once the job is done, and what additional services can be added on to it, because
Wow.
we see a lot of people where they're leaving a lot of meat on the bone. I mean, they're technicians, if they come out and they quote a job or they say, "Hey, here's what it's gonna solve," or "I can fix the problem for X number of dollars." Customer says, "Nah, I wanna go and shop around," things like that. Not the playbook. The
Yeah,
playbook
yeah.
needs to be 3 different options, and also give them as to what is the good, the better, and the best, and then if that doesn't actually get acted upon right then and there, then our AI systems will call or follow up with them specifically without the office staff having to do more work, and now you're getting your quotes followed up on. We've seen a huge, huge rise in additional jobs booked because of that.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard time and time again, John, money is made in the follow-ups. So the fact that you've, basically growing into a system where you can offer that to people, I mean, that is a tremendous value add, I think, without having to take the time of, like you said, their office or their team to actually go do those follow-ups. I'm curious from what you're seeing, are you using like an AI voice agent that is able to like literally pick up the phone and have a conversation to follow back up on what was given to them a week ago?
Yep, 100%, and it's not one of those where it's, press 1 for this, 2
Yeah,
for
yeah,
that,
yeah.
or anything like that. This was genuinely a conversational person. Like, my mom, she was on the phone with one of them. She had no idea she was talking to an AI agent for quite some time,
Yeah.
she's like, "But it was able to send me a text or resend my quote to my phone." I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, that's where we're at today. It's no longer phone trees and that's it." And, so I think that's gonna be a big advantage for a lot of owner operators that don't have a lot of staff as it is, but they wanna grow.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, John, that's fantastic. Okay, I'm curious, like when you go in to kind of like price this out to like, let's just say somebody wants to use everything that John's got to offer you and your company for me for my HVAC company. What does that look like? Do you give just like, okay, let's figure out all that you want, the customization to what you need currently to kind of get you to the next level? And is it like a flat monthly price to use their services, or how does that work when you quote people?
We do it We've got 3 different tiers,
Yep.
obviously, was where we just came from,
Yeah.
but 3 different tiers on it. We do either quarterly, annually, or we do custom. Custom is usually for the bigger shops that have a lot of moving parts already going. Our bread and butter, though, has been for that owner operator that wants to not retire, but they wanna be able to then run the business from the desk, not from the van.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so that's really kind of where we're focused on, and we do it either quarterly or annually. Annually gives you a better discount. Pricing, it depends on what you need. It depends on, do you need just outbound? Do you need inbound and outbound? Do you need more bookkeeping and things like that? Which we don't
Yeah.
do bookkeeping. You guys, that's your job, and we bring
Yeah.
them to you, but, do you need more coaching and consulting on that side?
Yeah, that's so good, John. I love it. Well, this has been a fantastic. I love what you're doing for business owners because I think, it kind of makes me think back to the E Myth, right? Where that whole concept of saying like you were really good at a technical skill that you developed along the way, and then you want to go start your own business. And then all of a sudden, when you start your own business, you got to figure out admin and finance and like we're calling people to payments and all kinds of stuff that you just never even thought about getting into the business ownership game. And I love that you're just serving, particularly those people that are still maybe the guy in the van and they're trying to be the guy not in the van. Like you just mentioned, to say, like, how do I get to the next level? And the solution is not always just you need to go hire 10 people. You need to talk to somebody like John that can actually give you a system and process to operate efficiently in your business as you continue to grow. So love how you're serving people, John. I think that's so great. So is there any other place, I guess, if people want to find out more about John, obviously we'll put your Instagram link in there. Is there anything else that you want to point people in that way?
The website that we're going through and redeveloping right now is eliteadvisorsconsulting.com. So if you guys want to go and visit there, any of the updates and things like that as it comes out, we're going on to that. So give us a little grace up front. It is going through a revamp right now, but here very soon we're going to have a lot more to come on that.
That is great. We will definitely put that in the show notes as well. John, thanks so much for being here. This was a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate you kind of peeling the curtains back a little bit about how you get to serve people.
Austin, thanks so much for having me. It's been great.